The Denver Broncos just got hit with some tough news from the AFC West. One of our biggest rivals, a team I secretly hoped would keep spiraling downwards, actually looks like they're starting to turn things around. This puts a big dent in our plans, as 2 wins we were counting on now seem uncertain. They're no longer a team we can take lightly, they're a legitimate contender. But it's not all bad news. There's also some positive updates about changes to NFL refereeing that could have a big impact, and we've got fresh news on the future of free agents within the Broncos organization. There's so much to unpack, so let's dive in. Now, the tough news: Denver fans, including myself, had really hoped the Raiders would remain stuck in their rut. Every year they get their fans' hopes up with a roster full of potential talent. But for years, they've struggled with finding a solid quarterback and a coach who can truly lead them to success. It felt like they were stuck paying coaches who are no longer even in the league. So the thought of them getting stuck in that cycle was a bit of a relief for us. But now it's looking like they might actually be on the upswing. With the Raiders possibly landing Pete Carroll as head coach, that's a big shift. Carroll is by far the most competent coach they've had in a long time, and his experience could really elevate them. And it gets worse. Rumor has it Matt Stafford could be joining the Raiders too. If this happens, they'll go from a mess with Antonio Pierce and some unproven quarterbacks to a powerhouse with Pete Carroll and Stafford leading the charge. That's a big jump, potentially adding 5 more wins to their record. Plus, they'll have Christian Wilkinson back, who might just be an even better defensive tackle than Chris Jones. Add in the best tight end in the game, Brock Bowers, and this team starts to look a lot more dangerous. I was hoping they'd stick with their plan of hiring Ben Johnson, who could have flamed out like Mike McDaniel did, but that's looking less likely now. If the Raiders land Carroll and Stafford, they could be in for a strong season. And it doesn't help that rumors are swirling about potential QB moves, including the possibility of Russell Wilson joining the Raiders. Nothing would make me happier than seeing Wilson reunite with Carroll. That would be something to watch. There's a lot to digest here, but for now, the AFC West is looking like a much tougher place to be. Keep an eye on the Raiders. They might just surprise us all. Now we're hearing more rumors about Geno Smith possibly joining Pete Carroll's squad. And with Tom Brady now an owner, it really changes the landscape. We've seen how important ownership is in shaping a team's future. Look at how much the Broncos have improved since the Walton Penner ownership group took over. And now, with Brady involved and rumors swirling about Matt Stafford joining the Raiders, it could make the AFC West even more of a battlefield. If the Raiders land Stafford, it's going to make an already tough division even harder. The Chiefs, with Andy Reid and Patrick Mahomes, are always a force. The Chargers, led by Justin Herbert and coach Brandon Staley, are a dangerous team. And then you've got the Broncos under Sean Payton, not to mention the Raiders, who could go from a team we relied on for an easy win to one of the top contenders. The AFC West could easily have 3 teams in the playoffs next year, which means we'll be beating up on each other, and one of us is likely to miss out. It's no longer a given that we'll beat the Raiders twice, and that changes everything. Looking at next year's schedule, the Broncos' easy games are shrinking. We're still facing teams like the Jacksonville Jaguars, Tennessee Titans, and New York Giants at home, but that's only 3 games that feel like gimme wins. Every other matchup is going to be a battle. The Dallas Cowboys game also doesn't scare me as much as it used to, but the competition is getting tougher across the board. As for the away games, it's not a cakewalk either. With a competent coach in place for the Raiders, that's another team we can't take lightly. Still, I like how we match up against the Indianapolis Colts. I also think Bo Nix will show up big time when we face off against Jaden Daniels and prove he's the better quarterback from that draft class. And while I'm not fully sold on CJ Stroud, I think we've got a good shot there too. The biggest challenge? Making sure the Chargers don't sweep us again. We outplayed them in the first half of last year's game but fell apart in the second. Next season, there's no way we let that happen again. We're ready to turn things around and keep improving. The competition is fierce, but it's going to make for one exciting season in the AFC West. The AFC West is about to get wild, and fans should be paying close attention. The energy in this division is real, and the biggest threat right now is the Raiders becoming a serious contender. That's the worst possible news for the rest of us. But not all the news is bad for the Broncos. On a more positive note, there's a significant update when it comes to officiating in the NFL, especially with the Kansas City Chiefs. For years, it felt like the refs had a soft spot for the Chiefs. especially with the way they've gotten favorable calls since Travis Kelce started dating Taylor Swift. But now, the NFL is rolling out a new electronic measuring system that will help eliminate a lot of these inconsistencies. Remember that game against Buffalo where multiple first downs were mysteriously overturned after remeasuring? This new system could reduce that kind of confusion, and that's a big win for teams like the Broncos. It removes any chance of subjectivity creeping into the calls, and maybe, just maybe, we'll finally see the Chiefs get held accountable. It's a small but important step forward for fairness in the league. Now let's hope the Raiders continue to Raider things. If they end up bringing in Russell Wilson or Matt Stafford, we'll have to live with it. But here's hoping Stafford lands somewhere else, like the New York Giants, or that he doesn't end up in Vegas. If the Raiders fall in love with Shedder Sanders, I'm okay with that. I think he'll be a solid quarterback, but I don't see him leading them to the playoffs in the next couple of years. If they do go for Stafford, let's hope it costs them multiple first-round picks, draining their arsenal and slowing their progress. Switching gears, let's talk about the Denver Broncos roster. We're all wondering which key players will be back next year, and the NFL Combine is the place where a lot of these decisions will start to take shape. George Paton, the Broncos' GM, is currently meeting with the agents of DJ Jones and Courtland Sutton, two players I'm hoping will return to Denver. While Courtland Sutton may not be an all-out game changer, he's still a reliable wide receiver, and his role is crucial for Bo Nix's development. Having a solid veteran like Sutton on the team could make all the difference for Nix as he continues to grow into the starting role. So it's a mix of good and bad news, but one thing's for sure. The AFC West is only getting more competitive, and the Broncos are going to have to fight tooth and nail to stay at the top of the division. Let's just hope the Raiders make the wrong moves, and we can keep building something special here in Denver. When it comes to DJ Jones, the respect he has in the locker room is undeniable. Players like Zach Allen have gone on record saying that DJ is the best and his favorite teammate he's ever had at any level of football. That kind of praise speaks volumes. DJ is a true glue guy for the team, and his ability to shut down the run has been a big factor in the Broncos' defensive success this year. He's one of those players that doesn't always get the spotlight, but is absolutely crucial to the team's identity, and keeping him around should be a priority for the Broncos. Shifting gears to the NFL Combine, this time of year is all about gathering information and positioning for the draft. The Broncos are currently in full evaluation mode, looking for their guy at pick 20. As we watch the Combine unfold, there are countless reports about who the Broncos are meeting with, everyone from Gentry to Warren. But here's something important to keep in mind. Last year, the Broncos met with 61 prospects, and only 2 of them actually ended up being drafted by Denver. This goes to show that these meetings are more about collecting data than revealing the team's true intentions. Sean Payton is a master of strategy, and he's playing 3D chess while others are stuck on checkers. Sometimes the Broncos may meet with a player to gather intel on someone else, or even to throw off the competition. In some cases, they might avoid meeting with a top prospect altogether to create the illusion that they're not interested, only to swoop in and grab them when no one's expecting it. So, while it's fun to speculate, we can't read too much into who the Broncos are meeting with. It's all part of the game, and Sean Payton is playing it well. Finally, a quick note on Drew Sanders. He's moving into the inside linebacker position, and I think that's going to be a great fit for him. I caught George Paton's press conference and rewatched it afterward. There's a lot of excitement about Sanders taking on this new role, and it could really help round out the defense. It's clear the Broncos are making moves to solidify their defense and keep improving as they head into the new season. Something that really stood out to me, and to shout out Respect My Co's on Twitter who pointed this out as well, was the fact that George Paton didn't mention Alex Singleton by name during his recent press conference. At first, I had just assumed Singleton would be back next season, but not mentioning him in a list of key players, especially when Payton specifically called out others like Mims, Troy Franklin, and even Bo Nix, might be telling. He even mentioned Javonte Williams potentially being back, but left Singleton's name off entirely. It's interesting, especially because it would save the team a significant amount in cap space if Singleton isn't brought back next year. So this could be an early indicator that the Broncos might be moving on from him. What do you think, Broncos country? Do you believe Singleton will return, or do you think this is a sign he's on his way out? And if you had to choose between DJ Jones or Cortland Sutton, who would you bring back? Let me know your thoughts in the comments.